a browser programming language, so which is used for client-side validations. So in the Visual Force page itself, if you wanted to validate your data or if you wanted to calculate some operations, we'll go for the JavaScript. So here we have the onload JavaScript and we have the internal JavaScript and we have the external JavaScript similar to the CSS. So even in the CSS we have internal CSS and external CSS, and here we have internal JavaScript and external JavaScript or also onload JavaScript. So let's talk about another editor. So we know there are three editors. So one is development mode. So we know how to write the code in the development mode, and another one is developer console, and another one is Eclipse editor, so which is a forge.com IDE, Eclipse editor, or forge.com, we call forge.com IDE. So here, so we just wrote the code in the development mode. So this is the development mode editor. You can see this is the development mode editor, and you can also write the code using developer console. So we'll talk about the developer console now. So I will show you how to use the developer console to write your code. So these are the editor just to write the code. So it depends on the developer choice. So if you feel comfortable with the development mode, you just write the code, no problem. Or if you comfortable with the developer console, you write the code using developer console or using the forge.com IDE. So today we'll show you the developer console as well. So to write the code in developer console, go to the user drop down. So here is a user and click on it. Here you see developer console. So this is the developer console. Just take the screenshot. So here is the developer console. Just click on user and you find the developer console. Just click on developer consoles. It opens a separate window. Maximize the window. It takes some time to load it, just few seconds. So here is a window, separate window, where you can write your code. So go to the file and open. So I would like to open the file. So as of now I have the Visual Force pages. So I don't have other elements. So I have only the Visual Force pages. Just to close it. Just refresh again. Let me close the other tags once. Go to the developer console. So you can just go to open and you have the pages. The page name is first VF. Just double click on it or select and open. So just double click. It opens the file. So this is the code I write. So this is the code I wrote. So you can continue from here. If you want to write an extra code addition to this, then you can write. So or else you can start from new. So if you want to create a new Visual Force page, new and Visual Force pages, or if you want to create a class, you can do, or trigger, or whatever you want, you can write it from the developer console too. So we'll continue from developer console for at least one session to make sure to write the code here. So let's say JavaScript. JavaScript is So again, it's a common programming language. So the .NET people uses JavaScript, Java people uses JavaScript. So again, it is a common programming language which supports for multiple programming platforms. At the same time, so we have the code here. So we have the Visual Force page code, and so in Visual Force page code, so JavaScript, so it supports the JavaScript code as well. So we use a JavaScript for client-side validations. So these validations are not related to the database, or it's not related to the server actions. So server action is the action that you control, that you execute at the class level, or the action that you execute related to the database. The server actions. So server actions takes more time. So instead of performing the server actions always, in case if you wanted to perform a client-side validations, just a browser and validations, we go for the JavaScript. So browser-side validations will be done using JavaScript code. It is a simple JavaScript code we can use. So using the JavaScript, we can just perform the client-side validations. So how many ways of JavaScript you can use? One is onload JS. So this execute when the page is loaded. At the time of load, if you wanted to execute something, then use the onload JavaScript. So what is the syntax for JavaScript? So we'll write the syntax. So what are the script functions you write? So that must be inside of the script tag. So just use the script tag, and inside of the script, what are the logic you have to write? You just separate it in a function and function name. You can define any function name, and inside of the function write your logic. So to define a CSS, we use the style tag. To define a JavaScript, we use the script tag. So use the script, and this is the syntax. So if you need any help, just visit double3schools.com. So yesterday I showed you where you can find the syntaxes. In case if you are very new to the JavaScript, just visit double3schools.com and you find the different syntaxes for any area. So as of now, this is a JavaScript function and function name. So to execute the function, so to execute the JavaScript function, so we use JavaScript events. So an event is nothing but when to execute this. So event is nothing but we have the different events. I will give you the list. Event equal to it is on click event, on blur event, on double click event. We have n number of events like this. So we'll show you where you can find the list of events. So these are all the different events. On clicking on button or on clicking on some component. If you wanted to execute the function, then we use events. So these are the events. So when to execute, on clicking on some component, I would like to execute my function. So if you wanted to execute, let's say there is a command button. We know how to place the buttons. Command button value equal to some run button. So run, if you wanted to execute this function, on click. So what you can do is on click equal to, and you have to use this function name, so that the function will be invoked based on this event. So which is on click. On clicking on this button, would like to execute this JavaScript function. So this is about the event based execution. So onload JavaScript. So in the case of onload JavaScript, once the page is loaded, so it will be invoked. Let's say if you want to write onload script. So what is the syntax for onload? We define a script tag. The syntax is window.onload equal to function, and your function window.onload equal to function, and write some statements. Alert, welcome to employee, something like the self-service portal. Just save it. Just make sure this is you just make sure JavaScript is a case sensitive. So we have to use upper and lower properly. So when you use uppercase letter, so it should not identify. It don't identifies. So see, when the page is loaded, just when the page is loaded, so which means when you first time visit this page, it will show you a welcome statement. So this is on load. So when it is loaded every time, so even when you perform some operations, if the page is loaded, so it will show you some alert messages. Welcome to employee service portal. So this is the onload script. So this is a syntax for onload JavaScript. So this is a syntax, window.onload equal to function. So you have to use like this only. And alert is nothing but an alert box, so which is a JavaScript alert box. And so you have to end it between script tags. So this is the onload JavaScript. So let me copy the full code for your reference. Now let's say my requirement is, so in case if you want to add, if you wanted to perform the validations, we can do that. So my requirement is, let's say I'm going to remove this. In case if you need, you can just keep it, no issues. So my requirement is uh, I would like to place few more columns, salary and some other columns, and let's say perform some operations. So it's a client-side validation. The validation is nowhere related to your database servers. So I would like to perform just a validation using internal JavaScript. So let's move to the internal JavaScript. So you know the internal JavaScript. So which is reusable in the entire Visual Force page. So JavaScript is reused in the entire Visual Force page. So this is an advantage of internal JavaScript. How to define? So this is a definition for. So this is a syntax for. This is the syntax for internal JavaScript. So you have to open the script tag, and inside of it you have to write the functions. So we'll write the internal JavaScript now. So before that, let's talk about what we are doing here. So we wrote the code in the development mode, and in case if you want to write the code in the developer console, so let's say you can just disable the development mode, so that it will show you only the output, and you can just write your code from the developer console. Just open and go to the first VF, and here is the developer console. So writing the code from here for some time. Open the script tag, and you can write different functions. What are the function you want to write, you can do it. And before that, let's talk about what we are doing here. So but it takes some time to save the code. So my requirement is I would like to add two more columns. So one is a salary column, and another one is a net salary column, another one is a tax column, and would like to calculate net salary. Because these calculations we are not storing the data as of now, so we haven't touched with the Apex classes. As of now, I would like to perform the validation on the page itself. There is no relation to our database server. So adding few other columns, I'm just copying this row. So this is for employee salary, and the same text box, and this is for employee tax percentage. Again, this is the same text box, and Here is employee net salary. Again same text box. Save it. Control S is the save. See, so if it highlights, so it is still running. So now you can see the difference. So it was saved. Go to the page and refresh. So you have to go back to your page and you have to refresh. So I see the more columns: salary, tax and net salary. My requirement is, so I'm going to show you a smaller use case using the JavaScript. So my requirement is I enter the salary, I enter the tax percentage, and when I click on outside or when I come out from the screen, I would like to update the employee net salary, or I would like to place one more button called calculate button. I would like to place one more button, calculate button, and once I click on a button, I would like to update this particular text with the net salary value. So either of the way you can do. So let's say I would like to place a button. So after the text box, using NBSP, which is a new blank space, and I am placing a button apex command button value equal to calculate net salary, and which is on click equal to some function name. So my function name is calculate net salary. So this is my function name I would like to define and make it return false. So this is a calculate net salary is a function name, that is a JavaScript function. You just define the function name, function and function name. A function and function name, calculate net salary is my function name. So if you wanted to test this function, you can use alert. So once you click on button, if you see this alert message hello, then which means your function is executing. Go to the Visual Force page. So here is a calculate net salary button. When I click on this, if you see hello, which means this method is invoking. So on clicking on this button, I am going to invoke a JavaScript function. So you have to write your own logic inside of it. If you wanted to comment the line, you just comment it. So when you comment it, it won't be part of your execution. Now, so calculate net salary is my function name, and what are the values depends on. So what are the values depends on this calculation. So one is a salary. Salary is the one value we need to use in the calculation. So we know net salary equal to, so we need a salary, column, and we need a tax, and we need a net salary column. So we don't do anything with net salary, so just calculate the net salary. So net salary equal to, the formula is salary minus salary into tax percentage, which is divided by 100. So what are the values which requires in your calculation, including the input and including the output? So inputs are salary and tax, output is net salary. So you have to define the IDs for each column. So IDs are used to identify the values. In JavaScript, to identify any value, we have to define the IDs. So employee salary, for employee salary I am defining an ID equal to eSal. So eSal is an ID. You can define any name. It is just a user defined ID. You can define E1, E2, S1, S2, whatever you name, whatever you give. So that is your ID. ID equal to eSal. So this is an ID that I am using for this HTML text box. For this text box. And if it is tax, for tax I would like to use TX. And for net salary, so here is a text box, use ID equal to net salary, NSAL. So employee salary, ID is E salary, TX and N salary. And if it is visual force component, so these are the apex components, these are the visual force component. Each visual force component starts from the apex. Or if it is HTML component, you can directly use the IDs. If it is a visual force component, you have to define the IDs for the page tag, ID equal to P1, and you have to define the tag for F1 also, form also. For page, the ID is P1, for form the ID is F1. So if you want to identify the value of the salary, so here salary ID is eSal and form ID is P1, uh, page ID is P1 and form ID is F1 and your input text ID is eSal. So to identify the value, so you have to use ID P1 colon F1 colon. From page, from form, I would like to get this ID eSal. eSal is my ID. And if you want to get the ID, the value of, if you want to identify the ID of the other component, tax component TX. So P1 colon F1 colon, if you want to identify this value of other component, the ID is ncell. So just use. So these are the three IDs for these three components. This is an ID for the salary column, this is an ID for the tax column, and this is an ID for net salary column. I'm just what you can do is, so we will remove this, so just comment it. So when you comment it, it won't be part of the execution. So just for the reference, I just commented this. So where is a strongly typed data type? So in JavaScript, if you want to define any data type, you have to use the where salary equal to, so what is the value? So document dot get element by ID dot value, and inside of the value we have to use which value you would like to capture. I would like to capture this, which means what are the value you enter in the particular text box, this particular statement gets the value. Suppose your salary is 10,000, so you get the 10,000 and the 10,000 stores in salary column, salary variable. Now where tax equal to the same statement, document dot get element by ID, make sure E is a capital, B is a capital, I is a capital. So better to copy the syntaxes from the double three schools or wherever from the online, so instead of writing. So dot value, because JavaScript is a case sensitive, you should use the proper syntaxes. So P1 colon F1 colon TX. So this is the tax. So you know the net salary. So for net salary, the ID is, this is an ID. So document dot, I'm directly placing the value, document dot get element by ID dot value equal to, so this is an ID dot value equal to, you can directly perform the calculation, salary minus salary into tax divided by 100. So this is a net salary calculation, value equal to salary. You get the salary minus 1000 minus 10,000 minus 10,000 into 10 divided by 100. So which is your net salary, which is equal to 9,000. So we are just reducing, we are just deducting the 10% of the tax from the salary and save it. So you don't need to write these statements while practice. So they are just a commenter line for your understanding. You can just remove them, which is not part of your code. So this and this, so just a commenting. So you can use the commenting code just for the reference. Now go to the Visual Force page and refresh. Each time when you modify your code, you have to refresh it. Adding the values, you can enter any values. These are the user input. When I click on net salary, see the result. So 9,000, which is calculated in button click. So if I change the value to some other, so you need to click on calculate net salary, so that the value will be calculated. So this is an example to the internal JavaScript. So similar to that, you can use any event. Not only this, on clicking of this button, I am going to execute this method to update the values. In case if you wanted to identify, in case if you wanted to see how many events we have, so I will show you. Just enable the development mode. I'm going to enable the development mode for the user, the current user that I am working. Because when you enable the development mode, then you see the component reference. Just refresh your screen. So here is the component reference. So this is for reference. Just click on it. So in case if you need any help, let's say I just used command button, Apex, just to type with the command button. Search for command button. Just click on it. So what are the available events you have? See, these are all the events I have. So you can use any of the events for the buttons. So I just used on click. If you wanted to use on blur, you can on complete, on double click, on focus. These are all the events. Wherever it is needed, you just implement it in your code. So these are the different events we use in JavaScript. I will give you some assignments to work from your end in JavaScript, because JavaScript has a less priority, so don't concentrate much. So we have the Visual Force and Apex code where we deal with more and more examples. This is just in case if you wanted to perform some client-side validation, so client-side logics, client-side calculations, just to go for the JavaScript. Not only this, you can do client-side, any kind of client-side validations. So I'm going to disable this again. So we will write the code from the developer console. So this is a Visual Force page code. So now moving to the external JavaScript. So before going to the external JavaScript, let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So again, so we just worked on the external CSS. Similar to that, we work on external JavaScript also. So external, the name itself indicates which is an external. JavaScript used from external files is called an external JS. JS means JavaScript. So in case you have the file, you have the JavaScript file and you would like to reuse, you don't need to write your JavaScript functions and all. You can reuse in case if you have the external JavaScript files. So what are the steps you have to use? The same steps you use. Step 1, identify the JavaScript file. Step 2, upload the file to static resource. And step 3, use Apex. The tag name is include script. You should remember this, include script, to call the external JS from static resource. So use Apex include script to call the external JS from static resources. Just follow the steps. Step 1, I'm going to create a JS file with the following code. The following code is nothing but your JavaScript function. You go to the application. So I'm just removing this function here. Just removing it. You can define a number of functions, no issues. So I'm just removing this function. under removing the script tag also, and save it. So if you don't have the JavaScript function, when you execute the page, just refresh the screen and you enter the values, and when you click on calculate net salary, you don't see the results. Click on n times, you don't see the results because there is no JavaScript function, because I just removed it. Place your function code. It's not required all the commenting logic, so you can remove comments. So this is a pure code. This is the JavaScript function code. So save it, save. So you can save this with any name. JavaScript. It's a my ext JavaScript. So you can define any name. Save it. So it can be the notepad file. No need to specify the .js extension. So it can be the node text file. It allows text files too. Or else you can just make it as a .js as well. So that is step 1. Create a JS file with the following code. So this is the code I am using. This is the code I am using. And what is the step 2? Step 2 is upload the file to static resource. I am going to upload the file. Go to the static resources. Go to the static resources. And go click on new and choose the file. So my ext JavaScript. This is my file name and make it public. So ext.js, something you can use, or net sal calculation, something you can use like this. You can just place the generic names as well. mpjs. So if you wanted to check what are all the function it has, click on view file. So this is just one function. You can add n number of functions. So it identifies based on the function name. So we use the function name whenever you call it. So this is a function name I have. So and JavaScript name is empjs. Just copy the name and go to your application. This is the second step. With the name empjs, and step 3 is, so upload the file to static resources with the name empjs, and step 3 is use apex or use the following statement to call the external JS file. So what you can do is just go to your application and use apex include script value equal to, so the file is from the static resource. You remember this statement, $resource and dot and your file name, the file which is in the static resource. You have to use this statement and the complete code. Now it has saved. Go to the page you have. I'm entering the salary and net salary, salary and tax, calculate net salary. See the results. You can enter any value there. You click on net salary, it will update the net salary. So because the function invokes from the external files. So this is an external file you uploaded. So you have to upload external files to static resources, and there are some syntaxes you have to use. So for JavaScript, use include script. So for CSS, we have to use style sheet. So these are the differences. For CSS, Apex style sheet. For JavaScript, it is Apex include script. And your static resources. So if your static resource is an image, we use Apex image. If your static resource is a CSS file, use Apex include Apex style sheet. If your static resource is a JavaScript, use a include script. So these are the differences. So these are the differences between internal and external JavaScript. So let's talk about the programming assignment. So we are just done with this part as well. So you know what is onload and internal and external. So we'll share you a smaller example to make it to make the practice from your side. A smaller application, just build a smaller application, calculations. So just to create a table, you know how to create the HTML table, just create it and use some header with some colors as you like. Let's say arithmetic calculator. So make sure the font bigger font. So place it in the middle and just enter two values, any values you enter. So place two text boxes in two different columns and place three buttons, any three buttons like as you like. So these are the buttons thinking. Place three buttons. So one for the sum value, one for multiply, and one for subtract. And place the logos value 1 or whatever the label, first value or value 1 or value 2, second value, and it should be like this. This is the column separator TD and this is the TR, enter TR. Enter the value, and when I click on some button, you place one more row, so which is for the result. Let's say result. So based on the click, you just update the results. In case if it is, let's say you enter the values like this. So first value 10 and the second value 20. When you click on multiply, you should update with the 200. So when you click on subtract, update with the -10. When you click on sum, update with the 30. So just to do this, a smaller requirement. So try with using both. So this particular example covers CSS concept, and try with internal JavaScript and try with external JavaScript. So this is your programming assignment. So as of now, so we are in very basic level, that's why giving a smaller scenarios. So based on the concept, so you will get the assignments. So these are the Visual Force basics. Just done with a view part in the model in the view controller, MVC controller. We just done with the